And Pulitzer Prize-winning journalists Megan Twohey and Jodi Kantor join us now from New York. Good morning to you, ladies. Thanks for joining us. Look, when you look at this story, the ripple effect around the world has been massive. Jodi, did you ever imagine that work would have such an impact?
Certainly not. When we were working on the Harvey Weinstein story, we were a few days away from publication, and Megan and I shared a late-night cab home here in New York, and we had been working so hard and we were so deep into the material that we just looked at each other and said, is anybody really going to read this story? And also, as one of our editors kept reminding us, he would say, Harvey Weinstein is just not that famous. But the huge effect is part of why we did want to write this book, because these events have come to mean to so much to so many people that we both wanted to bring you to the forefront and bring you into the investigation with us, and also investigate Harvey Weinstein even more deeply.
So, Megan, when you were in the earlier stages of this investigation, it wasn't at print yet, you were taking on a very powerful man in America with a lot of money. What was the lightning bolt moment for you? When did you realise that these women's stories were something big?
Well, we realized pretty quickly that there had, in fact, been many allegations of sexual misconduct against Weinstein going back to 1990. I mean, there was a young woman who had taken a job in his company right out of college in her early 20s, who had suffered a sexual assault at his hands. And, I tracked her down to her home outside of Manhattan here in New York, knocked on the door. She came, she opened it with a young daughter by her side looking up. And she said, I've been waiting for this knock on my door for 25 years. And so for me, that was one of those moments where I realized, oh my goodness, if this has been going back to as early as 1990, we may have a lot of allegations on our hands.
But Jodi, this was the most powerful man in Hollywood. He could make or break careers. How did you win over the trust of these actresses and people in the movie industry to actually rat on him, to talk to you, to trust you?
Well, it was interesting. By the time we started our investigation, I'd say his power had waned slightly, and yet people were still so afraid of him. He was a very intimidating figure. And you're correct that reaching top actresses was very difficult. It almost required little investigations unto themselves, because we would sit around the office and say, how do we get Gwyneth Paltrow's phone number? How do we get Ashley Judd or Uma Thurman's phone number? Neither of our backgrounds were in entertainment reporting. So, and then even if we did manage to get them on the phone, the question is then, in the first 45 seconds of that phone call, what do you say very quickly to establish trust with these women?
So what did you say?
Megan and I talked a lot about an approach that appealed to the desire to help other people. Our strategy was basically to say, we can't change what happened to you in the past, but if you work with us, we have a chance of taking this pain and putting it to some constructive use to help other people.
Harvey Weinstein has responded to your book, and I'll read you his statement now. A spokesperson has written, she said, that's your book, is all you need to know to appreciate that this book contains one-sided allegations without having adequately investigated the facts of the situation. There's a very different side to every story. Megan, what do you say to that statement?
Well, we have been reporting on Harvey Weinstein now for over 2 years, and every step of the way we have given him adequate time to respond. We include his voice and some of the comments he's made in that time in our book. But we have also been able to show through our additional reporting all the various methods that he has used to conceal the truth over the years, the high-priced lawyers that he paid to help beat back scrutiny, the private investigators that he hired to try to halt our investigation. There was one particular private investigative firm made up of former Israeli intelligence agents who were promised $300,000 if they could stop our investigation.
Oh. Wow. Geez, that's pretty heavy, isn't it? Jodi, can I just go back to what you were saying earlier about how you built the confidence of the accusers? It's one thing for them to talk to you and give you background. It's another thing to say, hey, can I quote you? Can you go on the record? How did you do that?
Well, what we tried to do was accumulate a mountain of evidence. The story wasn't just based on the record interviews. It was based on company records and old documents and the recollections of other employees and the legal and financial trail of these deals that Weinstein had made that were basically money for silence. But I do remember that when I called Ashley Judd to go on the record, I was bracing for rejection because nobody in Hollywood had ever shattered this silence. And we were hoping that a whole bunch of major actresses would come through at once, would all go on the record together. But that did not happen. I had to ask her to be the only one. So when she called me back a day later and she said, I picked up the phone and she said, I'm willing to be a named source in your investigation. I admit that I started crying because I knew that the silence around Harvey Weinstein in Hollywood would finally end.
Yeah, the movement started.
Of her.
There's one story in the book which I find particularly fascinating about Gwyneth Paltrow, who's such an you look at her and she's such an empowered woman and so sure of herself these days. But she was hiding in a bathroom at a party. Harvey Weinstein was in the other room and she's on the phone to you asking you what to do, Megan. What did you say to her and how frightened was she?
Right. Well, she was actually calling Jodi from the bathroom the day that Harvey Weinstein showed up early to this party at her house. She was terrified. She thought that it was clear that he was aware that she might be participating in the investigation, and she thought that he might have shown up to try to do something to stop her. And I think that this is actually one of the surprising things that people will learn is that Gwyneth Paltrow was actually a crucial source in our investigation. You know, this was one of Harvey Weinstein's biggest stars. You know, she was seen as the first lady of Miramax. And when we learned that she, in fact, had been a victim of alleged sexual harassment, you know, it was a huge moment for us because we realized that probably nobody was immune. And to have her assistance as we were working to get other people and find other women who might be able to speak to us was invaluable.
Well, it's an extraordinary story, and as we said earlier, the ripple effect around the world is extraordinary. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you
Thanks
for having
having
us.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. And if you'd like to learn more about this sexual harassment story that sparked a worldwide movement, get a copy of She Said.
It's on sale now, and all the details are on our website.